Hello and welcome. Today I wanted to do a review of this saber, which is the Relic Hunter from TXQ. Now this is another original design saber, but unlike the last original design saber that I did, which was the Lotus X, the Lotus X had a lot of really odd design choices, some of which were kind of a miss. This one I think hits more than it misses. I think this is a really good original design. So this is the Relic Hunter. My understanding is that when this saber was designed, it was designed by a fan as part of a Design a Saber and We'll Bring It to Life sort of contest. This was the winning design voted upon by people, I think it was on Reddit or something like that, one of those hives of scum and villainy on the internet where things like this happen. But it was voted on by fans, and this was the winning design, which was then turned into a real-life saber. So some interesting things about the Relic Hunter. It is an asymmetrical design. The pommel features a knob on one side that I suppose you could probably put a D-ring in. It's got a hole there that seems like it would fit a D-ring rather well. That's screwed onto the pommel. The pommel is threaded and removable. We have a matching gold claw up on the emitter that sort of matches this accent on the pommel. This is only on one side. The emitter also features this asymmetrical Demi shroud. So it's not a shroud all the way around the saber. This is kind of a thin neck design in here. And over it is this sort of half shroud that wraps around the two tactile switches and goes halfway around the saber. All right, the grip section on this is the pommel here. Oh, I'll take the whole grip off. There we go. This is the pommel here. This section is part of the grip section and not removable. And it features a little accent on there that to me looks like Ahsoka Tano's Liku, the sort of head tentacle things that she has. That's what that looks like to me, or sort of reminiscent of the fulcrum symbol, which is also, I think, derived from the Liku. But that's what that looks like to me. I'm not real sure what it's supposed to be, but I'm going to go ahead and assume that that's what it is. But these sort of faux vents, this accent symbol, this plain grip section right here that is recessed, so this would easily take a leather wrap or a grip wrap of some kind. I'm actually going to give it a blue leather wrap eventually here. It has a whole bunch of faux LED accents. Now you can't see, but under the shroud, these things go all the way around. It's a little glass eye looking thing that's red, but when the saber's on, this does not light up and it's not see-through at all. So it's a faux LED accent. Like I said, the thin neck, and then up in the emitter, there's a whole bunch of windows, and there's 4 set screws. I actually don't have screws in this right now, but that and that and that and that are all set screws, and these are all vents right here. So a little bit about the design of the saber. It's a very steampunk-looking design, I think. It was designed, according to the designer, he said something about he wanted something that was kind of like what Indiana Jones would carry if he were a Jedi. So I think steampunk is sort of the look that they were going for, and they definitely seem to have achieved it. If that's the case, though, why it's got this graphic detail right here, unless I've really missed the mark on what this is supposed to be, why it's got that is a little bit of a mystery to me. Also, the fact that this is all in silver makes it more subtle and a little bit harder to see. But by and large, sort of a steampunk saber. In terms of use, this is very grippable right here. And I know a lot of people grip their sabers from down here. For me, this always makes it feel like you're swinging it like a hammer. So I prefer to grip from up here, especially in a thin neck that has choke points. This saber is designed to be gripped from down here. Because of this Demi shroud, gripping it from up here is not comfortable because you've got these shroud edges, which are not actually sharp, but they're just sort of rough. And the buttons right here, since we've gone with tactile switches as opposed to recessed buttons, these would be very easy to hit with your hands if you were gripping the saber from up here. Down here, you would reach up to the buttons and it wouldn't be so much of an issue. So it's designed to be used from down here, which is fine for cosplay, fine for some dueling, a little bit harder for doing tricks with. So it's not exactly designed for doing tricks with. But in terms of use, in terms of display, it's a very solid saber design. So let me talk a little bit about the parts. I talked about how the pommel was a separate part that unscrews right here. This thing takes a two-part TXQ soundboard. So this part right here, if I unscrew the grip, in here is a soundboard that is connected with pins to this section up here that contains the LED and the switches. All right, this whole thing removes. So this is very much like the Revan saber that I reviewed that had the same sort of thing. The reason for this, they do this in their character sabers or their sabers that have weirdly placed buttons. Because in that button section, they can wire it directly to the buttons that it has, as opposed to using something that's got the uniform single button placement of the slide-in interchangeable cores. So this is less customizable in that sense because it's got these tactile switch buttons. These, by the way, you can unscrew the housing and you can see the switch underneath them if you had a mind to. They don't light up. But if they start to rattle a little bit, just twist them back in. All right, so interesting design there. One other thing that I would mention about this, there's a lot of Phillips head screws on here. All right, you can see this little one right here is a Phillips head. This is a screw that I lost that was a second Phillips head. These things are tiny and very easy to lose. This shroud is screwed in with 3 of them, but I want to show you what it looks like under the shroud. So I'm going to take a chance and try not to lose these screws. So if I unscrew these 3 screws, the shroud pops right off. So this is actually a good opportunity for people who have a mind to etch things or engrave things, because this gives you a nice blank canvas to put some neat details on. Underneath the saber, it's still a very solid saber design. In some ways, I think this is probably more usable because it allows you access to this choke point. The buttons stick up on a little platform right here, and you've still got the asymmetrical design. You can see the multiple glass eyes. There's 2 of them. One of these was covered up by the shroud. My only beef with this saber is once you get down to here, the design in here seems like some corners have been cut. And what I mean by that is this is all one piece, as opposed to this being a section that can be unscrewed. It's all one molded piece from here up. The other thing is these black accents right here, instead of being anodized, once you get underneath the shroud, you can see that this is tape right there. So this is actually a sort of matte black tape that has been wrapped around, and they've hidden the seam where the tape joins under the shroud so that you're not going to see it. Now that's not necessarily a deal breaker, it's just kind of a cut corner, I think. It does mean, though, that if you wanted these to not be black, you could just peel this tape back and have this whole thing be silver under the shroud. All things told, though, even without the shroud, pretty nice looking saber. So the Relic Hunter, I think, kind of nails that steampunk aesthetic that they were going for. I like the asymmetrical. It's not the most usable saber, but it's definitely a pretty one, and it can certainly adapt itself to a lot of costumes. This one, I think, like I said, I think this was more of a... oh, I've got the shroud on upside down. Hey, that's an interesting point. The shroud looks like it can be attached upside down. But, there we go. But, yeah, definitely an interestingly designed saber. I can see why this one rather like this design and how it ended up. So this has been the Relic Saber from TXQ Sabers. Join me back next time, and we will talk about other sabers, and eventually we'll start to talk about the features of the TXQ boards and how they vary from LGT boards. See you then.